Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be how I made the little Decoden pieces for the Dragon Decoden series that I'm doing. It's not up yet in my shop, but it will be coming, so I thought I would go through all of the little Decoden pieces that I made and show you how I made them. So starting off with the little pink macaroons, so I am using Sculpey Original for all of these, and I'm sort of mixing in the colours myself because I didn't have the colours that I wanted. I do have the colours now in already the right colour, but I guess the reason why it took so long to make these Decoden pieces in the first place is because I was mixing my own colouring, which I enjoyed because you can choose your own sort of colour or shade or pastel-y colour that you want, but it just takes a really long time. So basically for the macaroon, what I did was roll a sphere and then start adding all the little textures to the sides. I cut it in half with my little scalpel nub and rolling it as I'm cutting. So if you roll it when you're cutting, then it sort of keeps the spherical shape and doesn't give you a flat point on it if you cut it. So that's always a good tip when you want to cut something that's round. Roll it around on the table as you're cutting it. So for the little cream bit, I just got a piece of Sculpey Original and sort of flattened it out. I placed it in the middle of the two little macaroon bits, and then once I put them together, I start flattening it out a little bit because it was a little bit too round for my liking. So just pushing it down from the middle and then re-adding those textures on the sides. So I made two of these coloured macaroons as well, and I made two blue ones, but the blue ones will be later on in the video. So same deal with all of them, just rolling the spherical shape and then cutting them and then adding the cream and adding the textures. So for this one as well, I made quite a lot of little pastel-y twists. So basically it's a really easy process. You just get your 3 colours or whatever colours that you want, 4 colours. It doesn't have to be pastel, it can be whatever. And you roll it out into a little worm and place them next to each other. And then you clean it up a little bit along the sides to make sure they're the right length, and then you just basically twist them together. For some reason I don't have the footage of the twisting, but it's basically just twisting them together and sort of pushing them together to close the holes. Really easy and super effective as well. So this one's a little bit of a bigger piece that I made, a little bit more work to do. So it is a rainbow tiered cake. So it's got rainbow in the middle, and it's got white or icing around the outside. So basically what I'm doing is cutting out some little icing and tiers. So all of the icing bits are in this little circle shape. I do have circle cutters now, so I don't need to use the end of my sewing spiel. And basically just also rounding off all the coloured pieces to roughly the same shape. Now you want your icing to be thinner than the cake layers themselves, so always keep that in mind, because the icing will then be too thick. It'll be thicker than the cake layers, and that's not really what cakes look like with the cake layers. So just going ahead and adding the colour and then a icing layer, which is the white, adding another colour, and then adding a thinner white layer for the icing again, and just going along with that procedure to create all of those layers of the cake. And then once you get to the end of the colours, you want to put that white icing back on the end of the cake. So you can see I've built up all the layers, including the icing in between all of the colours, and then adding that final white icing on the back of the cake. So for the sides, basically just pushing out or flattening out a large sort of slab of the icing, roughly the same thickness as the top and the bottom, and just going around and putting it around the whole cake to cover the entire cake and make sure there's none of those little cake layers poking through. So you want to clean up all of the edges of the cake to make sure there's no overlap or it's not excessive icing on the cake. So I'm just going over with a sharp scalpel, being careful not to cut yourself, and just trimming off all of those extra little bits. And then I can start blending in the icing into itself, so there's no seam lines or anything. Just making sure, again, there's none of those cake layers poking through. So once you're happy with the way everything's blended, you end up having like a little block like this, and then you can slice your cake into little pieces. It's very similar to making a cane. I think it's a bit easier than making a cane, I guess, but it's a bit of work to create those layers, but you can really see what it looks like once you start slicing into those, into that cake and revealing the inside of the layers. So just being really careful to cut in the right way. So I basically cut down the middle of the round cake, and then I cut the pieces out of both halves, just being careful not to tear anything in the middle, pull it apart too aggressively and mess up those cake layers. You can obviously get a sculpey blade that's bigger, so you can just go straight down the middle and not use a scalpel like this. And it also doesn't really matter that you may have cut in the wrong place, because you can always blend it in when you start adding all of the textures to the cake with your little needle tool. So I'm cutting this cake into 6 pieces, so it's 6 smaller pieces. You can add decorations to the outside. I thought about adding like a tiny little bit of whipped cream, but as this was going into the deco cream itself, I thought it would probably get lost in the detail anyway, but I might do that in the next time I make a deco piece. So yeah, and by cutting it this way as well, you get roughly the similar shape for each piece. So once they're all cut, you go to adding all of the little details. So I have my little needle tool, and I'm just adding those little cake fluffiness to those coloured layers, and you can see it really sort of brought it to life, and made it look like a real cake. I think that's kind of my favourite piece out of these whole deco pieces. And again, so I'm making a little pastel rainbow with these sections, same deal as making the twisties, just making a little worm of each colour, putting them together, and then sort of bending the rainbows into a rainbow shape. And one of them I added clouds, so I had a little cutter tool that I used to cut out these little white clouds and then just pop them on top of one of the rainbows. Moving on to some donuts. So I made 2 donuts for this one. These donuts will have some icing on them, but that'll be later on in the video. And basically I just made a worm, connected it together, and made a little hole in the middle, and then I'm using some soft pastels to create the baked coloured, I guess, that you would see on a donut itself. It works for any sort of pastry that you're doing. So get yourself some soft pastels, mix them up and brush them on before you bake your pieces, and I think it works really, really well for making baked pieces. So for these ones, what I'm doing is I'm going to make some Pocky Sticks. So basically just rolled out some little worms again with some Sculpey Original, added that colouring to the end of the Pocky Stick. You didn't have to do the whole stick because you're going to be covering it with icing anyway. So I made this little bun thing as well, and some cookies. I think this is a cookie actually. So same deal, just flattened it out with a little piece of aluminium foil, and that gets you like that little cookie texture that you see on cookies. I think aluminium foil works really well for creating textures like that, and just added the pastels on top with the brush like I did the little donut as well. So for this one, it's a bigger cookie. It's like a little flower sort of shaped cookie. Cut it out with a little cutter, and then added some textures to the top of those little biscuit pieces. I also cut out a plain white one for the cream in the middle. You don't have to colour the whole cookie, just the outside and the edges of the cookie, because you're going to be putting that cream in the middle and you won't be seeing the inside of it, so there's no need to colour the whole cookie. And I just added some little dots around the outside of it to just give it a little bit more texture and character. And then added the cookie cream in the middle, added the top piece, and there's your little cookie. And I think this one was also one of my favourite pieces out of these bits. I'll definitely be making more of these little cookies for future Decoden things. For the Dungos, I basically mixed up all of these shades as well. I didn't have any green pastel super sculpey, so I mixed them up with some paint and got this nice pastel green colour. So basically rolled out 3 different balls in different colours, green, white and pink. Really easy, and just sort of stuck them on top of a toothpick, being careful not to go through the top dongo because you don't want to pierce the top of that one. So I made 4 of those and they look really cool together. Next piece is a little spiral lollipop type thing without the pop on it, without the wooden pop on it, the stick. So basically just, again, rolling out some snakes of the colours that you're going to use. I'm using pink and blue for this one. And then basically twisting it together. The more you twist, the smaller the little colours will become, and the lighter you twist, or the less you twist, the thicker they'll be. So this one's been twisted quite a lot, so I can get a nice uniformed spiral. And then I got 2 little spirals out of this snake, and just chopped them off in between, making sure that it's looking good. So, for the ice cream, I'm terribly sorry, but I don't have too much footage of making the ice cream. So basically, I rolled out a little ball and sort of pierced the top of it with my nail, ran my nail over the top of it, and it created a nice ice cream texture. So I got 4 colours of those. These are the blue macaroons. So again, I've done 2 of these ones. Same deal as I did with the pink macaroons. Just sped up the process a little bit and did the 2 halves, put them together, and then basically added the texture at the same time. It saved a bit of time, then adding the texture and then going back when you start adding the rest of it. So 2 blue ones as well. So final little bits, I've baked everything. I've baked this Pocky Sticks and I put them in between a piece of monster clay so I can stick them up. And then I'm adding this little icing sauce, which is really cool. It's from brand Tamia, and it's a specific Decoden icing. It's pretty cool, and it actually looks like icing. It's so realistic. So it comes in this little squeezy tube, comes in different colours as well. And then I just squeezed the icing like you would any other icing on top of everything that I wanted to ice. So these ones I went for the pink. The donut has some pink ice cream, and the other donut I did is like a blueberry ice cream, and it looks pastel here, but it actually dries transparent, which is really cool. It kind of looks more like a glaze, like a blueberry glaze. I've got a couple of different colours, which I'll definitely try out in some of my future Decoden pieces. But yeah, I really liked the icing. It really added that bit of realism and texture to the pieces. Again, adding a bit to the scroll. So I will be in a future video, here's a little sneak peek of it, but I'll be going through all of the pieces that I am making for the Decoden stuff. So I'll give you a quick close-up view of all of the pieces that I made, but it is a little snippet of what you'll find in the next video. But anyway, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I thank you to my patrons for supporting me. I really appreciate it as well. This collection will be up for my patrons first, so if you want to have a first dibs on anything that I make, let me know. Join me on Patreon. All my patrons get the early access first, and yeah, so don't miss out on anything that I will put in my shop. And yes, check me out on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at creaturesofnat, and my shop, creaturesofnat.com, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.